So, in number 1, again, how are we going to do this? We want to go from exponent to radical form. Square root of 9. And then the directions say to simplify if possible. So, do you know the square root of 9? 3. So, 9 to the 1/2 is 3. All right, what about number 2? How are we going to rewrite that as a radical?
3, the square root, and then 8, and then a 2.
All right, so you're going to have a radical, but instead of it being square root, what's it going to be? Cube root. So let's write it that way. The cube root of 8 squared.
Yeah.
Now, can you simplify this? Would you do, so you got 2 deals to do. Are you going to do 8 to the 2nd power is 64 and then take the cube root of that? Or are you going to do the cube root of 8 and then square that? I want you to write both of those ways. Either one of those ways will work. Whichever way gets you the answer the easiest is the way you need to go. So I'm going to show you both ways and then let you decide which one's the easier answer. All right, order of operations, you have the cube root of 8 squared. What is 8 squared? 64. Do you know the cube root of 64? That means what times itself would give you 64? 4 times 4 is 16. 16 times 4 is 64. So the cube root of 64 is 4, because 4 times 4 times 4 gives you 64. So the cube root of 64 is 4. Now do it the other way. Do you know what the cube root of 8 is? Cube root of 8 is 2, because 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. So the cube root of 8 is 2, and then you have 2 to the 2nd power.
Oh, that makes sense.
That's too much work.
So which way was easier to you? Both of them's pretty easy. All right, so the one on the left, you're raising to a power, which gives you a bigger number, and then you're going to take the cube root of it. The right-hand side, you're taking the cube root of a number and making it smaller, and then squaring that smaller number. So either way is fine. So if you have numbers, you may be able to simplify those, but look at number 3. Number 3, you have x raised to the 3/5 power. How are we going to write x to the 3/5 power as a radical? Okay, let's say it correctly. What's going to be my root? The 5 or the 3?
5.
The 5. So that is the 5th root. Not the square root, not the cube root, whatever that number is, that's what you're doing. You're doing the 5th root. So the 5th root of x raised to the 3rd power. What would be the other way to write that? Or the 5th root of x all raised to the 3rd power. Either one of those are the same thing. You need to be familiar with both of them. You see up here in the rules, you see how either way is written? I do not care which way you write it. It doesn't matter to me. Okay, either way is correct. So these next 3, we are going from radical form to rational exponent form. Rational exponent, that just means you have a fraction as your exponent instead of a whole number. Okay, so rational is a fraction. So I have the 5th root of 13. How am I going to rewrite the 5th root of 13 as a rational exponent? What is the power on the 13? What is the power on the 13? 13 to what power? No, right here. Right here is just a 1. So how am I going to write this as a rational exponent? 13 to the power of 1/5. Yes. So 13 raised to the 1/5 power. And that's it. That's all you're doing there. What about number 5? You have the cube root of 25. 25 to the 1/3 power. All right, what about number 6? All right, now in number 6, remember, keep in your mind that could be written as the square root of 7 to the 5th power from the previous slide. Remember, that could also say the square root of 7 to the 5th. So how are we going to write this in exponent form? 7 to the exponent is your numerator, the root is your denominator. So 7 to the 5/2. Now, all we're doing in this problem is rewriting this, but I want you to know that this answer can be simplified, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Okay? Questions? All right, so here I have the product rule. Remember, when you have like bases, what are you doing to the exponents? You are adding them. So all of my little fraction freaker-outers, here we go. You have x raised to the 1/5 plus 3/5. That's a 5, by the way. So what are we going to do? Add those exponents. Lucky for us, this has a common denominator. So x to the what? 1/5 plus 3/5 is you add your numerator, leave your denominator alone. So x to the 4/5 power. And that's, can you simplify that any?
No.
With those variables, there's not simplifying. You just, x to the 4/5 power. All right, so number 7 was already written in rational exponent form. Number 8 is in radical form, so you're going to have to take it over to exponent form and then add those exponents. Okay? So let's rewrite number 8. What are we going to write down? X raised to the 1/4 power times x to the 2/3 power. So all we're doing in that one is we're changing from radical to rational exponent form. Now we have x to the 1/4 times x to the 2/3, which is what? X to the, we have to add these exponents, 1/4 plus 2/3, and some of you are not going to go that step. What would be the next step to do? X raised to the, get a common denominator. What's the common denominator going to be? 12. So x raised to the, and then make you something over 12 plus something over 12. And then what are we going to do? How do you get that common denominator? 4 goes into 12 how many times? And then 3 times 1 is 3. 3 goes into 12 4 times. So 4 times 2 is 8. Now I have a common denominator. Add the numerator, leave the denominator alone. So x raised to the 11 over 12 power. X to the 11 over 12.